All right. What is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And Utah goes on the road and puts the beat down on Baylor. I'm starting the video because Utah is getting the ball back now with 25 seconds left on the clock. They're just going to knee it down, and then the game is over. But a very, very big win for Utah, guys. We're going to talk about it. I know there are some parts of this that feel a little bittersweet, so I'm not going to ignore that and act like that's not true. But as we get in here, guys, smash that like button so it'll get it out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down in the chat. The format we've been doing lately that I really enjoy is I kind of go through the different topics, and then we kind of close it out with a Q&A session where I answer a ton of questions, and, I might answer some Q&A periodically as well. I'm also going to do something. If anyone does want to hop in and hop on actual video during the stream, if they want to come on and chat a little bit, I'm going to put a link in the chat for anyone that is interested in doing that. So you're more than welcome to hop on there. Going to be a lot of fun, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers. Let's see, is the score final yet? Yeah, final score. So 55-28, Utah versus Baylor, final score. Let's go ahead and share the screen with the numbers. Okay, so here we go, guys. 55-28 for Baylor. And like I mentioned, I know some of this is going to be a little bittersweet. Let me put my face up here. I know some of this will be a little bittersweet. But there is this was still a very, very dominant win for Utah and a very exciting, overall performance on the road in Waco. And I also want to address, like, if you guys watch the game breakdown before this actual game, I did not say Baylor sucked. I predicted them putting up 21 points on us. They wound up putting 28 points up on us. Obviously, I did not expect them to move the ball through the air quite as well as they did. Now, one thing I did feel after I did the breakdown, reflecting back on it, was that I didn't consider how much they may be able to run the ball on us, because even though they didn't have a lot of rushing yards on the season, they did have a decent average yards per rusher. It wasn't great, but it did look like they had some opportunity to run the ball, especially against our defense that has struggled running the ball from time to time. But either way, a really big win, guys, and I think a really impressive performance. Let's check out the team stats here. We'll look at how Utah did and how Baylor did. I'm going to start with the positives, though, guys. Right at the gate, Utah rushed for 380 yards. So we went into this game being the number one rushing offense in all of P4 college football. And I believe we were number 3 in all of FBS, right? But in P4, we were number 1, which is a really, really impressive stat in average rushing yards per game. After this game, we're going to take a big jump. I mean, that's adding 100+ yards to this game with the average. That is a really impressive number. We were at like 267, and at the end of this game, that we finished at 380. That is going to really bump us up there. So really, really good news there. Now, overall total yards, you guys can see on the screen, 563 for Baylor, 483 for us. So I do, I'm not going to make this negative because I really do think it was a positive. And I actually think there's a ton of stuff that we're going to talk about tonight that is a lot to celebrate for the now. And I'll kind of hint at it. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, but there's a lot to celebrate for the future. After tonight, there is a player on this team, multiple players, but one in particular, and we'll talk about him in a minute here, that is just incredibly exciting, dynamic, and looks like he could be the future face of Utah football. So let's keep going here. So let's talk about the bad. 430 passing yards allowed. Now, I do want to caveat this a little bit. At least 100 of those passing yards were in garbage time. Our defense did look significantly better in the second half than they did in the first. It still didn't look great, but they did look better in the second half than they did in the first. But addressing that first half when the game was still competitive, I made a post on Twitter about this specific situation where We had allowed 244 passing yards when we got to halftime. But even crazier is, even though we had let up 244 passing yards when we got to halftime, that's like factoring in the insane amount of overthrows and drop passes that Baylor offense had. I mean, have you guys ever seen anything like that? That was the weirdest thing. I just drop pass, 20-yard overthrow, 10-yard overthrow, 5-yard overthrow. It was just like they could not get in sync. And thank God for that, because this would have been a tighter game, and that passing yards number would have looked ridiculous. So I just want to address that. And I know there were some guys that had some tough games. Obviously, I'm aware Smith Snowden had a pretty tough game. I noticed it. That's not to bash Smith Snowden. Great player overall. If you know, I'm a big fan of Smith Snowden, but definitely had a tough game. And there were times where I noticed him, struggling quite a bit. It feels like the past couple of games he's been having some off games. I'm not sure what's going on there. Hopefully he figures it out. I wonder if there's, maybe a nagging injury or something, like it's the coverage, it's the missed tackles, something's going on there. But anyways, I'm going to move on from this. They did beat us up in the passing game, but this is kind of their, calling card, is that they rack up a ton of passing yards and struggle to score in the red zone. We talked about it in the pregame show. They are an air it out offense. They're going to get a bunch of big chunk plays. They complete like 38% of their throws, or 38% of their attempts are over 20 yards. So that's, it's a big number. So if you watch the pregame, you're probably kind of prepared for at least something like this. But I thought maybe we'd allow like 250 passing yards, not 430. I mean, again, a lot of that was in garbage time, but still. And I will say, going back to the positive, guys, Utah's performance was very good overall. Like, if you look at our team as a whole, this game, again, just like many other games, you could say there was still some competition in this game when we entered the fourth quarter, but I believe we were up 3 touchdowns heading into the fourth quarter, and then we scored again. It was 55-28 final score. You can see it on the screen there. A dominant win for Utah. Sure, it does feel like there's a little bit of an asterisk next to the dominant win, but at the same time, it was a dominant win either way. And I think the team did a great job. I'm going to make a shout out here. I know it's a little odd considering the night we had. I'm going to share a different screen. Let me pull up a different screen for us here. Boom. Oh, it's going to be, I tweeted so many times tonight, so it's going to be hard to find this tweet. Well, I won't find the tweet then. So what I'm going to tell you guys is, as much as we did have a rough night covering the pass, when you look at our DB group, we have Smith Snowden, Benny, Blake Cotton, Elijah Davis, and Teo Johnson. That is a very good group, right? Like, it's a very strong group. I think one thing we don't have that we have had in past years is like a Zamaya Vaughn or a Clark Phillips III or a Jalen Johnson. Like, we don't have that number one guy that locks down elite receivers. I think that's a fair thing to say. But when you look at that group 1 to 5, it's one of the better 1 to 5 groups we've had. Again, I'm not going to talk about that too much tonight because it's kind of a bad night to bring that up because how rough the pass defense was. But overall in the season, they're actually a very good group. That was a rough night for that crew. So let's go ahead and start talking about some individual performances. I foreshadowed it a little that we did see some very impressive play by some of the players on this team. The first guy I'm going to shout out is going to be Wayshawn Parker. 15 carries, 129 yards, 8.6 yards a carry, and 1 touchdown. He is just a stud. We should have him on this roster for another year or two, and he is a beast, dude. And I love that we're like not wasting him. Like, 15 carries isn't a crazy amount, but it did feel like he was a big part of the offense tonight. And I think that's a really good sign, because as we get into the, hopefully the CFP, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but as we get, deeper into the year and into the stuff that matters, like potentially conference championship, bowl games, CFP, that sort of stuff, we will have a very fresh Wayshawn Parker. And as we head into next year, he won't be a guy that was getting 25, 30 carries a game this year. He will be a guy that was, a key part of the offense, but not just, drive him into the ground until he can't take any more carries. So Wayshawn Parker, really impressed with what he did tonight. I think he deserves a big shout out. Dallin Bentley also had a pretty solid game. Looked very, very strong in the receiving game, had a couple nice catches, made a couple clutch plays. So good work there. JJ Buchanan had a couple attempts, so 3 catches, but I believe it was like 5 or 6 actual targets. Didn't come down with all of them, but had a couple nice catches and did look, decent tonight. The guy that we do need to shout out, though, is this guy right here. Now, I'm gonna wax poetic a little bit here. Bird Ficklin looks so freaking good, dude. I'm gonna pull up his profile on ESPN. This kid is nuts. If you guys are a huge fan of Bird Ficklin, like me, like the video, this guy is so dynamic, such a big playmaker. Comment in the chat as well. We'll get to the Q&A later, but keep the comments coming in. This kid is I see huge potential in this kid. I know we haven't seen it in a crazy sample size yet, but I do think it's worth taking a look at what this guy has done on the season. He is a true freshman. Take a look here, guys. So he has 19 completions on 31 attempts for 278 yards, which is respectable, right? It's good. And it's basically one actual starting game of play, but, he didn't throw a ton in that game. And then some rotational work here and there. And tonight he actually got in during the game, during competitive times, and they let him throw the ball like that. I think it was over the middle. I forget who it was to, but it was a nice little he just slung it in there right over the middle. I think it was for a touchdown, but it was a nice play and really impressive work there. And then on top of that, he has 41 carries for 276 yards. So this is a guy that 6.7 yards a carry. Is that counting tonight? I actually don't think it is counting tonight. It's definitely not. So that's not counting tonight. So because I know for sure he had 5 rushing touchdowns before this game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. So we're talking about a guy, if my numbers are right off the top of my head, he has 430 rushing yards, maybe 440 rushing yards on the season and 7 rushing touchdowns. Let's see, he has maybe 1 more. Yeah, okay. Did he have 3 tonight? It looks like he might have had 3 tonight. So if he did have 3 tonight, that's pretty wild. Why don't we pull up his game log and take a look? What did he finish with against Baylor? Okay, rushing. Yeah, 2 rushing touchdowns, 166 yards. So are they saying that is including that? No, there's no way. Yeah, it's definitely not including that. So look at that, guys. So he's at 276 rushing yards without the 166. That is not yet included because there's no way the rest of the numbers add up to 276. So, guys, Bird Ficklin looks awesome. And I also think, I know this is a weird time to do this, and I'm not trying to be that guy. I am not trying to be the bearer of bad news, right? I'm not trying to be that guy and put a rein on our awesome parade of such a night. But look at this, guys. I mean, I think it's hard to ignore the problem we have throwing the football right now. Just being honest with you. And I like Devin. I think he's really talented, but I do have some concerns about once we hit that college football playoff, if we just cannot run the football, are we really going, or we cannot throw the football? Yes, we are an elite running team, but if we can't throw the football, and the truth is, guys, we really have no passing game over 20 yards right now. He's done very well between 10 and 20 yards, and he's done very well in the short game, but over 20 yards, it's not there. And look at this tonight, guys. Think about this. He went 6 for 13. And again, I'm not a hater. I'm just being real about this. He went 6 for 13 with a rushing attack that gave him 380 yards. So he had so much, back off from the defense to be able to throw the ball because they're in the box. Not back off, I guess the term would be, pressing up because they're in the box. They're pressing our receivers and they want to test him because they're like, hey, like we've seen it game in and game out that you can't push the ball deep. Again, I hope I don't sound like a hater, but I'm going to be real honest about this. And I feel like this is my take. I know this isn't going to, not everyone's going to love this, but I really believe the bird is the word. It's time to let the bird out of the cage. If Utah came in next week and said Bird's a starter, I would be 100% on board with that. I see some questions in the chat. Keep dropping them in the chat. I'll answer them as we get deeper into the video. Again, I am dropping a link. If anyone does want to come on and do a video chat with me, you're more than welcome to hop on, click on that link, and it should be fun. Now, and I'm just going to kind of finalize this, guys. I just think Bird, one, I think we found the future at Utah. I think he's clearly next year's starter. He's clearly our guy. He looks, dynamic, explosive. We've seen him throw the ball well, right? Even in the one game he played against Colorado, they were a good pass defense. And I think he showed up and he showed out. You know what I mean? When it came to throwing the ball, he struggled a little early on, but once he got clicking, and he realized like, oh, I don't have to target Davis. He's not my guy. I don't have to target Bentley. He's not my guy. Now, obviously, over time, we would have hoped that those would become his guys, but Buchanan and Simmons were his guys. Like those are the guys that he actually gets reps with. And so you could tell once he adjusted and started hitting the guys he's comfortable with and he wants to work with, he took off. Bird, guys, those 2 touchdown runs were ridiculous tonight, okay? Those 2 touchdown runs were just nuts. I mean, 6 carries, 166 yards. There was a point in the game where Bird Ficklin had 3 carries, 146 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers are crazy. That is insane. And this was like, I mean, you look at it, he was our number 1 rusher on the night. Like, and no offense to Dampier, because he's also an explosive runner, but he went 8 carries for 23 yards. And I really believe Dampier is a good quarterback. I just think we have a clear problem. Like it's like it's working right now because we have this insane rushing attack, but there is a problem. And I do worry that a high caliber team will be able to exploit that problem. And I think we ran into one really high caliber team in Texas Tech that really exploited that problem, and another not quite at the Texas Tech level, but BYU, it's a very good team. I'd say they're pretty much neck and neck with us. I'd probably say at this point I feel like we're a better team personally, but they're very good and they're right along there with us. And they tested us. They said, take the deep shots. We are going to give you the deep shots. We are not going to let you run. We are not going to give you short passes, and we could not get it done. I'm going to move on because I feel like I sound a little negative right now, and that's not who I'm trying to be. The number one thing is I think we have magic in a bottle with Bird, and I think we should run with it. And if the Utah coaching staff decides to stick with Dampier, I think that's the most likely situation. I totally get it. I understand where they're coming from. But if they went with Ficklin, I think what you're showing is that you want the CFP, that you want to go all in. You want to make a real run, and you're not going to be okay with not having any downfield passing game. So I'm gonna move on from the Bird Ficklin situation. I hope you guys appreciated that, and let me know your thoughts. I will answer the Q&A later on in the video. Moving on, some individual performances on the defense. So Jackson Benny did struggle in coverage, but I also think he provided a very good pass rush. He decked Robertson multiple times. He led to that one interception that Trey Reynolds caught, just lit him up. And there was another one that forced a really bad throw on for Robertson. That Jackson Benny is a legit pass rusher, dude. That guy gets back there. I actually don't even hate the idea of him. I mean, it's working with him at safety or corner and then sending him on blitzes, but I do not hate the idea of him beefing up a bit and moving to like an outside linebacker type of spot. I mean, he really gets back there, dude. He is a freaking animal pass rusher. JHD had a good night too. He got back there, got a sack. Jonathan Hall, I saw him get back there and light up Robertson a couple times. Again, I think our pass defense really struggled tonight. We got gashed by the run in the first half, but we adapted and we figured it out. So not a ton to hate there. As we go through the video here, guys, we'll keep an eye on that BYU TCU game because I know that is something we all have on our minds. Currently, the score is 10-0. BYU taking the lead. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, we're in a weird spot. We kind of, if we want to go to the conference championship, we need BYU to win. But I don't know about you guys. I really think we will get into the CFP if we win out. I just believe that. Like, I'm not saying there's 100% chance, but I just feel like that there's a really good chance. Like, we're right outside the bubble. Things are going to happen in the next couple weeks that will open up spots. And if we look at how critical I am and a lot of the people that I've seen on Twitter and stuff were about this game. We won 55-28. This is our worst looking win in, all season, basically. Right? I mean, like all season, this is our worst looking win is 55-28, where we did let up a lot of yards, but the actual score margin is hugely in our favor. I think the CFP will probably factor this in a little bit, that we did struggle a lot on defense in this game. But I also think we had a game plan. I mean, look at Sawyer Robertson's stats. He didn't exactly kill it. 29 for 59. He had a ton of yards, but it's like, we played a style of defense that said, hey, we're going to give you chunk plays, but we are not going to let, he also 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's not great, right? And less than a 50% completion percentage, or right at 50% completion percentage. I'm just saying it's not all bad, but I do think 430 passing yards, 500 plus yards, almost 600 yards of total offense allowed, considering our defense has been such a big weapon for us. We'll probably, they'll write that down. They'll dock us a little bit. But it is what it is, guys. It is what it freaking is. If they dock us for that, let's just keep winning. And if we keep having these wins, we will get there, guys. If we're winning by 20 points from now until the end of the season, I think we will be at that point an undeniable team. That's how I feel. I feel like it would be so egregious that we wouldn't get in. I will also say, I was saying this at work the other day. I was a fan of Baylor getting into the college football playoff. I felt like with Boise State getting into the college football playoff. I felt like with running back, it's escaping me now, Gentry, whatever his name is, something Gentry. And he was such a beast, and it showed in the games. He looked, amazing in the college football playoff. And so I think that made it feel justified and made sense that they were in there. But I got to be honest with you guys, this year, that is not how I feel. I don't feel like there's a clear G5 team. And I guess, maybe I'm Monday morning quarterbacking this because now it's going to affect us, right? Now it's going to hurt our team if they're letting a G5 team over us. But I'm just being honest. If you let out, and this is even defending BYU, let me give you the list of the teams on the bubble. Texas, Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's not on the bubble anymore. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But BYU, Utah, Miami, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, USC, and you put in a 11-1 G5 team over that list of teams, that's pretty whack. Just being real. If a bunch of those guys don't get in and those guys get in, that's not good. So that's my thoughts there. So let's go ahead and go down the college football playoff. So taking a look, so these are the college football playoff rankings. We're going to talk about what happened today. Texas and Georgia is over. Wow. Last time I was watching that Texas-Georgia game, it was 21-10, but Georgia kind of looks like they pulled away pretty hard. So let's talk about it, guys. Bit of a shakeup here. So Ohio State, dominant win. Remember, guys, we kind of want the top teams to stay at the top, and we want the teams closer to us to fall off. Ohio State, dominant win today. And then Indiana, I believe they had another dominant win today. Let me just double check that. I was watching, 31-7 against Wisconsin. So, dominant win there. Texas A&M almost lost today. How weird was that game, huh? 30 to 3 at halftime. South Carolina was up on Texas A&M, and then Texas A&M has this miraculous comeback, 28 unanswered points, and beats South Carolina. I have a coworker that really likes Texas A&M, and I was like, oh man, he must be having a bad day. And then I was watching the game, and then they just kind of slowly came back. That was pretty wild. So Texas A&M, they might move a little. I could see them like dropping to 4 or something. They might keep their same spot, but they're still undefeated. So that's the story there. Now, Alabama, this is a game that is not what we would have wanted to see, right? This is not what we would have wanted to see in this game. Alabama, what was the final score of that game? So Oklahoma, Alabama. So Alabama got beat. So 23-21, Oklahoma beat Alabama. And what that means, I'm going to go down the list a little bit. Oklahoma was number 11, so they were already above us. They are probably going to wind up somewhere in this range, 5 through 8. That'd be my guess. They're going to take a pretty big leap because they just beat the number 4 team. And then I don't think you put Alabama's 8-1. I don't think they're going to drop below where Oklahoma was. I think they'll be right in this sort of range, 9 through 11. So kind of not good or bad for us, but probably not good considering we kind of wanted the loss to Oklahoma. That was kind of one I'd almost penciled in, just being real about it. I assumed Oklahoma would win that or lose that game, but they did not. And so, is what it is there. But yeah, so that's the story there. Georgia, dominant win over Texas. Was Texas, we're going to talk about them in a minute, is going to fall pretty hard because it was a 35-10 victory. So you might actually see, like in my mind, I probably see Georgia being above Texas or being above Oklahoma for sure. So I actually think probably you keep Texas A&M there because they're undefeated, and then you put Georgia at number 4. That's probably what's going to happen. And then Texas Tech, a huge dominant win over UCF. We all know UCF is not very good. But I mean, still, they just beat them down like they were an FCS team. I mean, it was like 48-10 or 48-9 or something like that. Just a crazy dominant win for Texas Tech. Ole Miss, so they were actually down by a decent amount at times. I was watching them play Florida. Florida's a 3-6 team, and Ole Miss did win by 10 points, but it was very close up until the later fourth quarter. And then, Ole Miss just kind of pulled ahead in the game and closed it out. So, I would say they're probably just going to keep the spot they're at. Oregon, I forget who they played, but they had a big win. They played, they played yesterday. They played Minnesota 42-13. So dominant win. And don't kid yourselves, guys. We are in a resume chase with all these teams. There's a reason you're seeing some big score margins here. I think Texas Tech and all these teams are trying to show that they deserve it. And I think Texas Tech will be number 5 this week. And all the teams are trying to lock in these spots. Notre Dame had a big win. It was 40-something to like 10. I forget who they played. It was Pitt, which Pitt was like a pretty decent team. 37-15 against Pitt. So that's a pretty good win. So they're probably going to I don't see them hopping over anyone. Like, who are they going to hop over? They might all – I think what we might see is like, is there a world? I don't think there's a world where Oklahoma doesn't hop a few of these teams, right? Like, I probably just looking at the list, considering Oklahoma is 8-2, they beat the number 4 team in the country. I probably put Oklahoma number 9, and that pushes Notre Dame to 10. And then Texas, like we mentioned, 35-10 loss against Georgia. So pretty ugly loss. It was more competitive than that, but still a pretty rough loss. So I think Texas is going to hop below us. Alabama is going to get knocked down. So overall, we did move up on the list, right? We got to see what happens with BYU, how competitive that game is. but we're probably going to be this coming week. We're going to be right in this range. Miami had a dominant win. Georgia Tech, good for us because we don't want Georgia Tech to leapfrog us. Georgia Tech had a nail biter against Boston College, and Boston College only has one win on the season, I believe. And so that's probably a good sign for us where we don't have to worry about them hopping us. Miami could make a case, but we had a dominant win, guys. When you actually look at the scoreboard, even though it's not quite like that, we had a dominant win. BYU is making a play, though. I don't know if you guys are watching this, 17-10 for BYU. So they're pulling out ahead pretty strongly. But don't forget, Josh Hoover, that TCU passing offense, can make a comeback. That can come back to play. I just realized I forgot to hardwire in tonight. I hope my connection's coming through strong. Let me know if it's coming through weaker or whatever. I noticed you doesn't feel that way, so hopefully not. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and move into the Q&A. Again, if anyone does want to hop on and chat for a little bit, you don't even have to show your face. If you just want to, share your thoughts, I'm putting the video link in there so you can hop on and talk with me. Love to hear your thoughts. Let's go ahead and go through the comments. We have a ton of comments in the chat. 77th says, go Utes. Yep, I'm with you. Tat says, BYU will accuse us of running up the score. I don't know. I mean, maybe they will. They'd say weird stuff. What's funny is I saw BYU fans commenting about the Texas A&M game and saying like, "Oh, we were only down like one or two scores at halftime, and they're going to treat it like ... And it was funny because they all lost their minds when I was talking about how Utah had a much more competitive game with Texas Tech. Like, even though the score at the end doesn't show that, you look at with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, our score was 13-10 and their score was 26-0. And it was funny. BYU fans were making that exact same case with the Texas A&M versus their Texas Tech loss. So I thought that was funny. This went about as well as we could have hoped for all things considered. I think that's a great way to look at it, Doodle. It's kind of like, it wasn't perfect, but this was a good team. I mean, this is what you need. And honestly, I also don't hate our team getting a little bit of adversity. I know it wasn't really like a slugfest game, but it was like a competitive game for, the majority of the game. And I think that was good for our team because when you look back at the season, guys, we've either had major blowouts or just one rough loss and then one somewhat tight loss with BYU, pretty tight loss. But I don't mind us having a little bit of adversity, and it's great to see the final score shows a big margin in our favor. Doodle says they were having success passing, but we also came up with 2 picks, one being a pick 6. Yeah, that's what I was touching on earlier. Yeah, they threw for a ton of yards, but on top of all that, Doodle, they also I don't even think it's 29 for 59. So like basically right at 50% of their passes were completed. And we tested them. We said, we're going to press you guys. We're going to force you guys to take shots deep. We stood really strong in the red zone. And, I think it could have been a lot worse. I think, had they not had all the overthrows, had they not had all the drops, but I think when you're manned up, pressing a team and sending blitzers a lot, it does throw the quarterback off. It did lead to a lot of those overthrows, that sort of deal. Christopher says, we did surprisingly well against the slot fade. They kept running, but they were more open than I would have liked. I totally feel what you're saying. That the slot fades were the overthrows that kept happening, right? That was a lot of the overthrows with the slot fades. Yeah, we were like forced a lot of incompletions with the pressure, but it was kind of like, damn, if they had a better quarterback. It's weird because Sawyer Robertson is supposedly, like so much hype around him, but it really felt like in that game, if the quarterback was different, that might have been a different game. Now, they did have a lot of drops too, but still, the quarterback, if he could have made some of those throws, that would have been wild. Okay, 77 says, Ficklin is so good. If he wasn't a true freshman, I bet he beats Dampier out for QB1. Ficklin's a beast. I touched on that earlier in the video. He's really talented. Doodle says, at one point, Ficklin had 3 carries for 146 yards. Oh, well, can't even get these those sort of numbers in video games. For real, those are crazy numbers. And those 2 runs he had where he just broke away. And the first one was kind of like he just found a wide open lane, turned on the burners, and got it done. The second one, he had to work for it for like that first 20 yards, weaving in and out of a couple guys, and then just turned on the burners and went downfield. But what a awesome player, that guy. Haas says, what a great win. Great win, guys. Yeah, there's some marks that we need to improve and we need to work on. But overall, I mean, let's be real, guys. Think about last year. Think about you know who leading that offense and just nothing happening ever. So let's make sure we celebrate tonight and not focus on the negatives. This is such an awesome year for us. No matter what happens from here, this has been a really fun season with a ton of talent on this team. And, hats off to the coaching staff. They have really put together something. And, yeah, I'm really impressed with what we have going on out there. Tat says Bird can fly. Absolutely, he can. PNW says let's Ficklin go. Absolutely. Doodle Bob says, is it more of a receiver problem or a QB problem? It's a QB problem. Yeah. Just being real with you. I'm not saying like the receivers are perfect, but the problem is at QB. The reason we can't push the ball down the field over 20 yards, it is at quarterback. And I don't think it's controversial. Tat, I believe you said I agree when I was talking about the Bird Ficklin situation. And Doodle says 100% we have a passing problem, though. You aren't hating. So this is for those of you guys that came later in the video. Earlier in the video, and I'm not usually one to say something like this, but I really do believe that Ficklin is something special. You know what I mean? It's if heading into the next week, the coaching staff made the call to start Ficklin, I would not hate that, and I would support it. If they keep Dampier, that's the more likely option. That's the safer option. I would absolutely support it as well. But I do think we are getting to a place with Ficklin where the ceiling is so evident. You're scared of what the floor could be because you've only seen it in so much of a sample size. But like, it does feel like he is the right move moving forward. We have not been able to move the ball down the field. And what I talked about earlier in the video, like I said, for those of you just getting in, is what happens if we get to the CFP? Because I think absolutely with Dampier at the helm, we will beat Kansas State. We will beat Kansas. We will beat Baylor, who we already beat. But we will get there. We will get wherever we're supposed to go. Once we're there, are we really going? You know what? Let's pull this list back up. I want to ask you guys, honestly, this is a real question for the chat. Are we beating Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Texas Tech? We've already proven we couldn't do it against Texas Tech. There's other factors, but sure. Oregon, Notre Dame, whoever you want to list on that list, are we beating those teams if we can't throw the ball over 20 yards? Comment in the chat. Give me your answer, because I do believe Dampier's good, and I think he's a good quarterback. But there is a real problem with moving the ball down the field, and he seems like a great guy too. And I hate even like having to take this type of stance, but I do have concerns about, hey, what happens when you play a team with a top 5 roster and they have a really good offense and they aren't like some of the Big 12 teams where even like, because this is what Texas Tech did, guys. They sold out to stop the run and we were not able to make them pay by getting them over the top. That's what BYU did. They sold out to stop the run, and we were not able to make them pay by getting them over the top. And those are the 2 best teams we've played this year. Let's be real about that. I think Texas Tech is clearly the best team we've played this year, and BYU's right there next. There's just a gap, right? And I just think when you're playing these great teams, the elite teams, the great teams, the very good teams, you're not going to be able to be one-dimensional. So I do have concerns about it. I know that sucks because we had such a good night. It's such a fun night. There's some black marks, but overall things went really well tonight, right? Like the game, dominant win. We should move up 1 or 2 spots in the CFP ranking. I think it's great. But I just, I just want to ask you guys that question just super honestly. Like, do you think we get it done with Dampier at the helm. Like obviously he could miraculously figure out the 20 plus yards problem, and his medium passing, his intermediate passing has gotten significantly better over the season. If anyone knows that, it's me. I dig into all these stats, but I do think that's worth calling out, guys. PNW Ute says the throws seem to be a part of the problem, not just the catches. Absolutely. Yeah, this is like, I'm not saying the receivers are perfect and it's this crazy talented receiver room. It's an okay receiver room. I think we have a couple guys in there that look very good, but overall, some of them like Buchanan and Simmons kind of unproven, right? And then Davis, he seems to me like in an ideal world, he's a really good number 2, right? Or a 1B, but he needs a 1A as well. But it doesn't change the fact that we do have guys open downfield, and we're either not taking the throws, or when we do take the throws, we can't connect. PNW says Ficklin got clicking. You say, oh yeah, Ficklin got clicking. He got clicking big time, dude. He looked great. And I think in the sample size we've seen of him throwing the ball, it's looked very good. The completion percentage hasn't always been that good, but the thing is, your completion percentage could be 80%, but if it's not getting first downs and not making plays 15 plus yards down the field, how much does that really matter? Tad says Witt is too loyal regarding the quarterback position. I mean, I push back a little on that, Tad, where like I actually like I could see this being like it is a huge decision. Like if you guys, played in a locker room, like, it's not like Madden where you just switch them out on the depth chart and switch them back if it doesn't work out. It's a big deal. It's a big statement to change who the starting quarterback is. And I actually think, and I probably think this could be very real. I think we kind of started to see it happen towards the end of this game. Is I think we might see a little bit of 2 quarterback action. And what I mean by that is not like a hybrid, they're both on the field. I'm talking about them switching out every now and then. Not like crazy, but like enough to say, okay, hey, like we want to see if Bird has this over a larger sample size, but we also know the potential problems with pulling Dampier. And so maybe they'll, give it a go. I wouldn't hate that. Brad says, great night for Utah. Yeah, for sure, dude. Really, really great night for Utah. Really great night for Utah, dude. Seriously. Yeah. Great night for Utah. I'm excited about the fact that guys, if it goes the way we think it's going to go, I really think we're going to get there. We're right on the cusp. If we were like 15 or 16, it would feel like, maybe, but it's a bit of a stretch. But where we are right now, guys, and how we've performed in all of our wins, I really think we can get into the CFP. If we win out and they're all, multiple score wins, I can't imagine we're not going to see a little more of a shakeup before the season's over. Because don't forget, Oklahoma still has to play Georgia. And I think even with their win over Alabama, like I mentioned, they'll probably be like number 9 to 7 this week. And we'll probably be like number 11, maybe. And if they have another loss, if they're 9-3, we would get in over them. I feel pretty confident about that. So if they lose to Georgia, which they, I feel confident they will, then I felt confident about Alabama too. Then we would get in over Oklahoma in that situation. So again, the odds are still very strong. PNW says announcers were saying 45% chance for the CFP before a game was over. Now higher with a convincing, entertaining win. Other teams like Memphis and Texas falter. Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm at too. Where it's hey, we have a very strong case and a very high chance of getting into the CFP. Update on the BYU game, 24-3 right now. PNW Utes says hook 'em Utes. I'm guessing that means you want Texas to win? I'm not sure what that means. Utah 22 Utes says 17-0. Oh, you just give an update on the score. Okay. Stuck Bass Pro Shop says they don't even try to throw down the field. And I get we run through everyone, but I feel like one route trees are weird and no one gets open. Some simple RPOs would be so elite for us. So I'm going to read through all your little comments here, and then I'll touch on all of them. They don't even let Dampier get comfortable. No one gets open, and the route trees suck. No, he's not Tom Brady, but he can make throws, and we just won't even try. Stuck Bass Pro Shop. The routes and play calls sucked against BYU. I agree that Bird has bigger upside, but they don't even get anyone open for Dampier to throw. No slants, not quick ins or zigs. It's all mesh concept. Just run sideways. I got to disagree with you a little there. I'm not saying you don't have a point, but I've when he tries to push the ball down the field, we saw it once or twice tonight where he had a guy and he throws the ball down the field, and who was it? Larry Simmons. It's like it was 30 yards down the field, but it looks like a back shoulder fade. Larry Simmons had to like slow down and come back to the ball. I actually thought they were going to call PI, but then on the replay, it didn't look that bad. But I'm telling you, dude, it like that's not uncommon. When he tries to throw over 20 yards, there is like an arm strength / inaccurate problem there. So I would push back on you there. Not that we couldn't get more creative, not that we couldn't do a better job of setting up receivers to get open down the field, but it is very hard to scheme guys open. And there's been quite a few times where there's guys with 5 yards of separation, and 5 yards of separation is a lot in college football. And if you can't make that throw, I just don't know what else to tell you. Like that is not, I don't think that's even controversial. I think most of the people in the chat would agree with me. We have seen this. We saw it against BYU where he just let that one hang up and Tanner Wall like jumps over that guy's head and picks it off. And we saw it against Texas Tech. I'm just forgetting the specific play. Again, I think Dampier's a good to very good player, super dynamic with his feet, really good at short throws, and pretty damn good at intermediate. Right now, really striving at intermediate throws. But there is it can't just be non-existent when you're throwing over 20 yards. I hope that all makes sense. And I'm not trying to say that you don't have some good points there. I think the problem, I think some of the route trees you might be criticizing are due to the coaching staff being aware of his arm, what would the word be? The what his arm can do. And if your arm can't do it, why would I have a receiver run the route? Notre Dame winning big is the pits for the U. Yeah, that sucked that Notre Dame won big. That sucked. But yeah, because that was the top. I think Pitt was top number 22 heading into this week. So that's a good win for Notre Dame. Tat says it was a slugfest, literally. Boom. Utah wins. Let's go. Oh, PNWU with $2. He said, oh, I forgot to comment on this. Thanks for the $2 super chat. He said Davis thought this was a slugfest. Yeah, that was a little embarrassing. So I will say that at the end of the game, Baylor was getting in our guys' faces, mouthing off badly to them. But I will also say it's just like, these are college educated guys. Like they're, these aren't random guys out in the street. You don't throw the first punch. That's kind of the rule, right? Like in football, there's so much trash talk. In life, there's so much trash talk, but you never actually hit anyone unless they hit you. That's kind of the golden rule when it comes to talking trash and getting in confrontations. You don't hit them unless they hit you. You can be annoyed that they were mean to you or whatever, because I'm sure, the trash talk gets intense, but you don't hit people unless they hit you. I don't know what was said, but, you don't hit people. Pulling out the pom-poms for Cincy the rest of the way. Yeah, Cincy lost today, right? Yeah, that's a good point there. I'm sure this coming week before during the pregame breakdown, we'll take a look at what the Big 12 conference champion situation is right now. But honestly, guys, I don't hate us not going to the conference championship. I will say if we get to the conference championship, we will go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in college football in Texas Tech for another time. And if we do beat them, we absolutely will get in. There's even a word where we're in that, top 5, top 6 conversation and have a realistic road to the championship. But I also think we don't need to get into the conference championship to get to the CFP. I actually think our odds of getting to the CFP are higher without the conference championship than with it, because Texas Tech is really good. Obviously, we would need to beat them if we get to the CFP either way. You guys get what I'm saying. Boom. Car Wash, good to see you. He says Utah's last 2 games are versus the Kansas schools. They both suck. So those games should be easy wins. Don't disagree with you there. I think Kansas has a dynamic quarterback, and you never want to count out a dynamic quarterback. Just look at that South Carolina, Texas A&M game. But you are right. We should win those games. Boom. Sports Time Machine says, so versus Kansas State next week, what time of game do you think we're looking at? I don't know. Probably a morning, or maybe not. I mean, maybe a lot of eyes are on Utah right now to kind of see what we do. Boom. Without a passing game, we lose in the CFP. They'll contain Dampier and force him to throw. 77. That's what I'm getting at, right? Like that's what I've been saying. It's not about me hating Dampier or feeling like he's not a good quarterback. There is just a clear inability to throw the ball past 20 yards. And if that's the case, then teams will exploit that, and really good teams, like, we talked about it earlier, we don't have this star-studded receiving squad. We do not have, like, I don't think they're bad, but it's like not this, 5 and 4-star group like Ohio State has had in past years. And it's like, so we need to have a quarterback that can make some throws. And I do have concerns about whether or not that's Devin Dampier. Brada dude says, you ain't wrong. This offense got to stay on schedule. Yep. Shirt Pants 4, what a name. We're way too one-dimensional to get away with beating the top teams. I don't disagree with you. And I think it's not even that we can't throw the ball. It's we can't throw the ball if teams try to force us to throw deep. That's really it. 77 says, if we play BYU on rivalry week, do you think we get the W with how we're playing now? Yes, I do. Sports Time Machine says, unless we are top 8, that first game is on the road, and I'm not confident. Scally D will have to call a perfect game, and Dampier will have to manage this game perfectly. Yep. He kept Charlie over Cam too long, Charlie Brewer. Yeah, it's ancient history, but you're not wrong, Tat. I'd say, though, like in like real life, it's probably better to be loyal to your quarterback than to not be loyal to your quarterback. Like you need you especially when there's a QB competition in fall camp, like and spring camp and all that stuff. It's like you kind of seen enough of a sample to feel good about your decision, and so you should stick with it. But after a few games, if it's not working, it's not working. Dave says Oklahoma does not play Georgia. You're wrong, bro. They play Mizzou and LSU. I think you're right. Yeah, I was actually thinking of Texas, I guess. Texas, they play Georgia, or who is it? Someone else plays Georgia. Is it Texas? They play Georgia and they play Alabama. I'm trying to think who it would be. Hopefully, Texas A&M beats Texas and pushes the Longhorns out of our way. Well, I mean, Texas is done. I don't think Texas is going to have a shot. Like, their record right now was 7-2, and they lost. They're 7-3 now. I don't think you get in with 3 losses. Dave says, I think Dave's agreeing with me there. Texas lost. They're out of our way. Nope. Texas will beat Arkansas next week, and the committee will get high on them again. Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be pretty controversial because our losses are to 2 teams that are either clearly in the CFP or right on the border of getting to the CFP. So you're either doubting your own ranking system, or you're, not being genuine and not giving us a fair shot there. So who are we cheering for the rest of the way outside of Cincy? I don't see how Porvo loses to Cincy. Yeah. I think I'll wait for Josh Furlong to post the update, and then next week before for the game breakdown, we'll go over all that. AT1 says, hey there, man. Love your show. Good game. Yeah, thanks, man. I love doing the show, and I love you watching it. So thank you. We aren't getting in. We needed Oklahoma to lose. I don't agree with that. You seem a little down, Bass Pro Shop. A bit negative, just being honest. DBGII77. If A&M wins versus Texas, are they out? If A&M wins versus Texas, are they out? Texas is already out. Like, for sure. Just so you guys, like, you're not getting in if you're 3 losses. Oh, now DBGI says, oh, sorry, I lost it today. PNW says, if your starter can't pass, next bird up. And, I'm with you there, dude. If you can't make the throws downfield, that's a problem. Like, it is. And we're winning. We're winning now because of our trench play and our dominant rushing game. And it is a special rushing game, guys. We have the best rushing game in P4. It might be the best rushing game since I started covering the team. And, I started covering the team in the Tavian Thomas year. And that was a crazy rushing attack, but I think this one might be better, mainly because of how good the offensive line is. I think we are anti-Oklahoma people. How awesome is the O-line when the defense is playing the run every single down and we still rush for 400 yards? Yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, we just dominated, even though they were selling out to stop the run. Huge Ute fan. I'm telling you, we are not in if things hold chalk. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure we'll take a deeper dive next week once we have the new rankings and that sort of stuff. BYU is a mirror image and doing the same thing. Utah O-line is awesome. Bird honestly has left-handed Jaden Daniel vibes. I'm with you. Bird looks amazing. I would love it to see if Bird was our guy next week. Boom. Dampier had 2,768 passing yards last season. Is that because he was in the G5? I won't say it's because he was in the G5, but you could probably get away with more arm strength problems in the G5 than you can in the P4. I mean, this is the elite of college football. So just wondering if it's a higher level of play for passing most. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I mean, really, that's probably what it is. All right, guys. So I'm going to close up shop tonight. Go watch the rest of that BYU TCU game. And I'm going to go put my kids to sleep. Great win for Utah, 55-28, dominant win, rushed the ball until we broke their back. Like the video, guys. Comment down below if you're watching the video after the fact, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I made some hot takes tonight about the Bird Ficklin Dampier situation, so I'm sure I will get some comments on that. But I felt like it was the time to make that statement. I feel like when you do this, if you don't call it balls and strikes, B&W says, let's Ficklin go. Just being real, guys, if I don't call it balls and strikes, it's not going to be my real takes. So, and I've been holding that for a little bit, and I decided to put it out. John Miles says, go Utes. John, good to see you in here. We're in the video right now, though. Sorry you just came in, man. All right, I'm out of here, guys.